Hello, I am Federico Regoli, CEO and Senior Advisor of Artemide, and today I will speak about the quality control and the perspective from the QRA compliance. This presentation will focus on an important activity to be carried out in the laboratory. In fact, quality control is a crucial aspect in the activity of an IVF lab, while today we cannot consider this activity as a standalone one, but included in a larger approach. Let's see now the main topics of this presentation. As you can see, there are a number of elements on which we will focus before talking about quality control. The IVF clinic activity is a complex of processes and procedures where an effective organization is really needed, not only to give the patients their expected success in terms of the birth of an healthy child, but also to ensure the conformity with respect to safety, quality and regulatory requirements, to give the clinic an effective way to pursue a sustainable success. As we can see, there are specific terms on how the quality control is defined. The concept of the activity as quality control has been applied starting from the 30s of the last century in the automotive industry in order to reduce the defects in the mass production. Actually, this activity began when a competitor started to put on the market the same products. Thus, the cost of realization of the product must be contained. In fact, since the ISO 9000 series have been published, the QC is part of the activities and it is defined as a part of the quality management. It is also a reactive activity because normally quality control is performed on a product, activity or provision of services after these items have reached a certain stage. In case of deviation, I then need to react, so that's why I cannot rely only on QC approach in providing healthcare services today. In a large number of countries today, to have the authorization to open and maintain open an IVF clinic, it is needed to design and implement a comprehensive quality management system, where quality control has a space within other activities such as quality planning, quality assurance, and quality improvement. Implementing all these activities together enables the quality control activity to have the expected effectiveness also in terms of cost containment. Let's see now in this slide and in the next three what is the content and the definition of the main activity of a quality management system today. The quality planning is the initial phase when there is the need to implement a quality management system, as through this process it is possible to identify all the things to be put under control and then to activate and to keep healthy during our work. A proficuous quality assurance system in place is a promise that what I am going to perform will be in line to what is planned. So, together with quality planning, quality assurance is another activity to be done before quality control, in order to have, first of all, anything possible already planned, and that an assurance that what I have planned is realized according to the expected results. There we are now to quality control definition, that is part of quality management focused on fulfilling quality requirements. So for any critical part or parameter of my process, after the quality assurance approach has been followed, I can rely on a proper QC activity. This activity is like a customs office at the airport, where all the things that pass through are controlled with respect to their risk. Think how passengers landing from domestic flights are monitored and controlled by the customs officers with respect to the ones coming from outside the country. There is a very, very different approach because the risk to bring in dangerous things or forbidden things is higher than for the local flights. At last, we are arrived to quality improvement, that is, the part of quality management focused on increasing the ability to fulfill quality requirements. Another important activity that is a must when dealing with healthcare services is the continuous improvement. The improvement could contain any need to change something, coming from a non-conformity, a complaint, new technologies, new regulation, new premises, etc., and whatever is needed to consider to make our activity better than before. The four activities described above are not separated but always linked together in the magic circle of quality. And here is the visualization of the famous Deming circle, where the activities described are put in a circle and linked together. This approach has been developed by Mr. Deming in Japan in the 50s, when the QA/QM awareness was rising and is still valid today to coordinate all the QMS-related activities. After the first lap, where I have applied all the four activities, I have to continuously keep maintaining this philosophy. By properly applying this approach and standardizing the processes, we can then put the foundation of a new circle, but not starting from the same level as before the first lap, but from a higher level of quality. The result is that the IVF clinic, and thus the laboratory too, will increase the ability to ensure the expected results, not only in terms of clinical success, but also in terms of regulatory compliance. Here we can see the list of the items that are the main elements we need to consider when implementing a proper quality management system in any field, but especially in healthcare. The first four activities, so context of the organization, leadership, planning and support, are the activities that can be inserted in the plan and do activities in the Deming circle. Then operations, performance evaluation and improvement are the activities that are within check and act items in the Deming circle. First of all, it is very important to understand where we are going to implement our quality management system. So it's necessary to take into account our specific organization, the applicable regulations, who is interested in our activity, not only the patients, not only the employees, but all the stakeholders, and to accurately identify and design the processes we will then apply. The very second important point is leadership, and it is the involvement of the management of the company in defining the roles and responsibility and communicate this role and responsibility inside the company and externally to the parties involved in the processes, so suppliers, partners, competent authorities, patients, etc. Anybody must be aware what is the specific role on any people in the IVF clinic, so there are not misunderstandings when communicating to anybody, internally or externally. Then, an effective risk assessment carried out at all levels and the evaluation of the opportunities are a source of useful information to drive the IVF clinic to a good level of professionality. A proper definition of quality objectives, a plan to reach the expected results, and identified key performance indexes to monitor the effectiveness of the action taken is important to fulfill this item. The resources must be identified and, for example, for the human resources, a specific and customized approach to verify the competence, the awareness and the respect of the communication rules must be adopted. We must not forget all the things related to the infrastructure, the structure, the building, the instrumentation, the materials that can address properly the activity for our work and for our everyday provision of services to the patients. After a number of preparatory activities, now we start to talk about control. Of course, our quality control. As you can see, the control is listed here after another important activity, to plan. Yes, because also the controls we established are not impulsive or improvised, but they are part of a plan. Normally, the quality control points are set when a critical process must be checked before passing to a new step. For example, when you prepare the biological material for an embryo transfer. This is a critical step. You have to control everything done until now in order to be sure that the transfer will be made with a good embryo and the proper embryo for that patient. Also, the QC activities may be planned at every stage of our activity, and as any activity has a cost for the company, every QC step should be properly implemented. What is the key to the decision to implement or not a quality control activity? A proper risk assessment. As of now, we have planned, evaluated, managed, made procedures, make the activities, make the controls, and everything done until now. After having made all these activities, of course we cannot forget to make these activities controlled. The documented performance evaluation is the food for every decisional activity. No decision should be taken without taking into account the acquired data, the relevant specific analysis, and the conclusion obtained. Any decision taken on feelings may lead to severe counter effects. Of course, at least once a year, the performance evaluation results should be reviewed by the top management in order to raise the awareness of the company about any needed change and to decide for any important investment. For example, new equipment, the need of new premises, the need of new personnel, trainings, and so on. Any activity in the IVF clinic can lead to the need to implement or to activate non-conformities, corrective and preventive actions, to establish quality objectives, or to revise the key performance index limits or intervals. And all these things must be done through a documented activity and a documented management of the decision taken before opening or implementing this activity and then after, in order to document and to record the effectiveness of the decision taken. At last, we talk about improvement. Of course, any activity we have seen before cannot be left alone, but for any deviation, for any problem, for any need to improve, a documented management of these things must be done. The source of this information can be KPIs, audits, complaints, anything that can be documented and can be managed through a proper activity, a documented activity, in order to raise our awareness and to improve our activities. We have these tools such as non-conformities, corrective actions, and continual improvement to be done in the clinic in order to record these items. Of course, in our implementation, we cannot forget the requirements. So, where the requirements are coming from? A number of sources we have to consider these requirements. For example, safety, quality, traceability, ethics, allowed procedures. What are the local requirements I have to consider? It depends on the country you are. For example, in Europe, we have to follow the European directives on tissue and cells for the moment. In the future, there will be a new regulation. So no directives, but a new regulation. And also the acronyms will change from tissue and cell directives to substances of human origin. What is the requirement for safety? you have to check the local requirements for the safety of the workplace, for the safety of the environment, and whatever it is needed to apply. For quality, it's the same. In some countries, you need also to have a specific ISO certification in order to keep maintaining your authorization. Traceability. Sometimes you have to record your activity or some of your activities in a Ministry of Health database. For example, for the donated cells, you have to abide to ethical conduct in your country. In some countries it's allowed a technique, in other is not allowed. So anything you have to consider is based on the local level where the clinic is located. Now, after having seen what are the general requirement of implementing a quality management system in an IVF clinic, what are the requirements, what are the basic principles, let's see what is a quality control in the IVF lab and what activities are crucial to ensure the safety and effectiveness of the treatments we offer to the patients. The first activities that we can consider in the quality control activities in the IVF lab are preventive maintenance, calibration and verification, and environmental monitoring. As for preventive maintenance, the need to make a specific plan of preventive maintenance for all the critical equipment is a very crucial activity, because with this activity we can avoid any not foreseen stop on any critical equipment. Calibration and verification, we need to calibrate instruments such as pipettes, thermometers and scales, or other devices or other probes according to their intended use, and regularly check that they are working properly. In this case, please avoid to calibrate probes or scales or thermometers or pipettes that are not used to measure a defined quantity or unit. In this case, we can also save some money, because it's then a useless calibration. For the environmental monitoring, we need to monitor the environment and the temperature, the humidity, and the level of gases in the incubators, but also in the laboratory rooms. In some areas, in some countries, also the air quality in the lab should be in line with specific regulatory requirement, such as good manufacturing practices Annex 1 for the laboratories resident in European Community. Also, all the consumable materials must be controlled, must be checked, periodically checked before their use, and before they are introduced in the lab for the first time. We have to validate the intended use, understand if all this material is valid for our procedures. We need to maintain traceability of batches and expiration dates, to check periodically that all the material is not expired. If it is expired, it must be stored apart in a specific area, designated area, with a label stating that the material is not conforming, in order to avoid misuse. And also the storage of the material must be done according to the specification of the manufacturer and under appropriate condition. Avoid contamination and degradation, and avoiding also to bring in the lab outer cartons that can bring in dust, microbiological contamination, and so on. Another important part of the quality control is the control of biological samples. So anything that is under the activity in the laboratory must be clearly labeled and tracked all the times and during all the stages, but it is very important to have a standardized witnessing procedure when we have critical passages. For example, we need to involve a second operator or to have an electronic witnessing system that ensure that all the passages have been done properly. We need also to assess the morphology and motility of sperm, the quality of oocytes, the development of embryos according to standardized criteria, and all these criteria must be properly applied to all the staff working in the lab in the same time. In our QC activity, we cannot forget to apply the standard operating procedure we have developed, validated and implemented, because any critical activity must be done according to specific procedures. The evidence that I have followed my procedures must be written, must be done in my forms, in the records I have developed together with the SOPs, and I have to take care that every SOPs is referred to a valid source. For example, the instruction for use of the materials I'm applying, I'm using in the laboratory, proper literature, national or international guidelines, etc. Anything should be controlled, and a system of data recording must be in place in order to check the validity, the effectiveness, and the application of the procedures. Also, the training of the staff must be ensured for all the personnel, especially for the people who is doing critical activity on the cells and on the biological material it is processed in the lab. And this training must be repeated every time I make a major change in the SOPs, and all the training activities must be registered, recorded in high quality system documentation. Also, microbiological control must be done in the laboratory, so we have to conduct a periodic test to ensure that all the surface, the culture media and the equipment have a specified contamination level, and that these contamination levels are within the expected specification or within the regulatory requirements. For example, as I was saying before, in the rooms of the laboratory we need to stick to grade D, good manufacturing practices Annex 1 if the laboratory is in the European Community, and under the workstation the quality of the air and the microbiological contamination must be according to the grade A GMP Annex 1. And all this activity must be done under regular checks to detect and to correct any microbiological contamination that is above the expected levels. The laboratory performance evaluation has a key role in the quality control of the IVF lab. Of course, this activity must be linked to the other, as seen before, but we have to plan regular internal audits in the lab and a benchmarking of our results with international, national or local reference and standards. For the internal audits, the audits must be done in order to check or recheck critical areas, to better check areas where I found a weakness before, and so I have to see if my countermeasure, if my corrective action has been properly applied and they are effective. And we have to check also the compliance with the procedures I have developed, and it is also the audit and occasion to check if the procedures are in line with the updated regulations. It's a very good activity to see and to detect any chance to improve the documentation and the activity in the lab. Also benchmarking my results with international reference standards such as Alpha, ASRM, ESHRE or WHO guidelines or other laboratories. It's a very good chance to identify areas for improvement. It is very important also to evaluate and to follow independent external quality assessment programs in order to understand if my employees, if my technicians are properly working and properly checking the quality of the biological material we are processing in the lab. So, as I already said before, and I repeat now, we need to record the activities, to keep the data, to use this data, reliable data, to check all the activity, to document all the activity, to trace back any activity I have to fix or any issue I have to understand, I have to investigate. I need to have a complete system of data management, data storage and data preservation, and the ability to analyze this data and to periodically review this data in order to understand what are my trends, where I can improve my processes, how can I better train my people, and to bring this data and these results to my high management in the clinic, in order to let them understand what is the situation in the lab, what is the situation in the clinic, and what are the needs to, for example, to improve equipment, rooms, personnel, and so on. So, any activity I have done as of now is useless if I haven't checked that is in line with all the regulatory compliance. So I have to regularly check the laws, regulations, guidelines, national, international guidelines, and properly put my work, my documentation, my data recording in line with these requirements. The regulatory compliance today is a key activity, and the periodic monitoring of new issues of laws and regulation is very important in order not to miss any new regulatory item, new regulatory requirement. Forgetting to apply a law, forgetting to apply a regulatory requirement can lead to high fines, especially when we are talking about data of the patients. It is important also in this case to have all our process in line with the ethics in our countries, and that the patients are adequately informed, but especially that they have signed a specific consent for any technique we are applying to them and to their cells. So, summing up what we have seen until now, and let's keep in mind that before beginning any biological activity, all the IVF lab operators must be aware of all the above mentioned topics, because these are the key of conformity. All the items listed are more or less part of applicable regulatory requirements in a large number of countries, so we cannot escape from them. Ethics, safety and quality are the keywords for a clinical, scientific and company's sustainable success. That is the only things we have to keep focused on, because our clinical pregnancy means a success, but it's a single success. To keep it, we have to keep maintaining all the items we have seen as of now. So, at the end, this is my take-home message. Anytime you enter in the IVF lab, you must be aware on how to set up the IVF lab, what is the quality and safety of the IVF lab, what is the situation of the environment and instruments, and how to make the principal care and checking of these items, to take care of the key performance indicators for the total performances and for the single operator activity, the witness we need to take care of during our activity, to pay attention to paperwork and certification of the materials, of the instruments, the validation of the environment, and so on. And all these records and documentation must be properly stored. And we cannot forget at the end our quality controls and quality assurance activity, but these are to be made on a daily basis and duly record any relevant data. At last, a quote by Henry Ford, the famous car maker at the beginning of the last century. Quality means doing the right thing when no one is looking. Thank you.